Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Fabulites. This is Angela with another edition of Not News, Notes on the News. This is where I share with you my thoughts mostly on headlines, some of the articles I've read. Some I've read the little intro after you click the title, and some I've just read the title or the headline. Some of them I might have done extensive research on. You can find full articles and links to these and other articles on my @BFabulousU newsfeed at Twitter, BEFABULOUSYOU. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and sticking around to see how we go through the not news. Let us proceed. Dang, what was this maximum misery article about? It hadn't been that long that I skimmed it. Mumbai in India. It's this article is talking about how India has they're theorizing that India has become, Mumbai has become India's most unlivable city. But there was a stampede that killed 23 people at I think a railroad station on Friday. So 23 people. There are masses of people dying in a lot of different places. 50 people here, 20 people there, 15 people there, 200 here. Is this like just normal? I don't know. But anyway, rest in peace to the people who died in the stampede in Mumbai on Friday. October 3rd, 1935, Ethiopia is invaded by Italy. And Ethiopia at that time, I think I read, was one of two African countries, one of only two African countries that had not been invaded, occupied, was not being run by Europeans. What was the other one, I wonder? But anyway, Ethiopia was one of them. And I think Mussolini was mad because the last time they tried to attack Ethiopia had pushed them off before as well. Some people just stay mad. Why are you mad? Because I don't want you running over me and I'm not going to let you, I'm going to fight you. Wouldn't you fight? 10 Haitian women journalists you should know about. Part 1. This is coming off of this vlog, Crayolicious. So is part 1 5 of them or 4 of them? Or is part 1 10 and then part 2 is going to be another 10? I don't know. I didn't click the link, but I thought it was interesting. Like, who are these Haitian journalists? I'm assuming they're Haitian. Haitian women journalists. Man shot during Las Vegas Massacre helped save 30 people. I had seen imagery of him yesterday as a young black guy, so this is coming off of the Griot. I think I skimmed the article. He said his nieces and nephews were there, so he helped them first and then was helping other people. He got shot in the neck. Shareholders call out Starbucks for unequal family leave policy that they say hurts low-income and LGBTQ workers. So I missed the whole, when I skimmed the article, the impression that I got is that I missed the whole lesbian and gay, etc., how it would hurt those people. But when I skimmed the article, the impression that I got is that basically, there's like a hierarchy of benefits and a hierarchy of pay in most organizations. So basically, if you work in store at Starbucks, you don't get the same benefits as the people who work in corporate. So, most of the poorer people work in store and the wealthier people work in corporate. But it also kind of reminded me that, a lot of times your benefits when you work at places, they get better as you move up the hierarchy. So that, the person who is at the ground level, worker does not have the same benefits as someone who is considered an executive. The miseducation of the Black diaspora and how it's dividing communities. This article was sort of if I remember correctly, talking about the fact that, and I guess like around 1995, people started talking about the African diaspora. I didn't realize that language was so relatively young. That's around the time that I thought I started hearing it well before that, but I don't know. Because around 89, 93, I would have been in college, and I thought I had heard of Pan-Africanism and the African diaspora before that. But it's sort of like, is it John Henrik Clark or one of the intellectuals kind of talks about this idea that we all the same people. Some people was dropped off here, some people was dropped off there. We might speak different languages, but we're the same people. We speak different languages because of where we were dropped off by the Europeans and because of the language that the Europeans spoke, who quote unquote owned us, but not because we are a different people. And we might be mixed with different types of European and different types of native people. But again, that's not because we are a different people. We do have our African ancestry in common, and we do have the culture that comes along with that, in addition to experiencing the hostility and the desire for domination of us and ownership of us to this day by rich white men with property and power. So, just because somebody speaks Spanish, I should not think that I am not connected with them. Or just because someone is living somewhere in the Caribbean and maybe they might identify as more Jamaican and I might identify as more African American, doesn't mean we're not, cousins, brothers, sisters, because literally cousins and brothers, we got that connection through our bloodline. But how people think, she's Latina, so she's not connected to me. Now, when I went to New York, I got a whole different type of education. And then I guess, my first husband, being Jamaican and his family and him having a Pan-Africanist orientation. And so I just got connected to people from all over the world who were of African descent and identified and thought of themselves as folks of African descent. Inequality is getting so bad, even Wall Street is starting to take notice, says this headline coming off of Business Insider. I think I might have looked at the article. I can't tell you what it's about. Why isn't America afraid of white men? And this is a continuation of, this is coming off the Griot. This is a continuation of that conversation. Hey, dog. This is a continuation of the conversation about the white man who yesterday or the day before killed, injured a bunch of people in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Massacre. And, on one person's show yesterday, she was talking about how many gun shows there are in Las Vegas and how it's just part of the culture. And people were like, oh my gosh, how could he walk into the hotel with 20 guns? And why didn't the people who worked there notice it? And first of all, I know when I worked in a hotel, I realized, oh my gosh, the people who clean the rooms, because there was this big issue with them called clicking the sheets. It's something where you don't strip the sheets and put fresh sheets on. You snap them. I can't remember what it was called. But the people who clean the rooms would just, if the bed looked okay, they would just make it up, even if new people were coming into the room. And so sometimes people would find condoms and it would not be clean sheets, it would not be new fresh sheets. But I realized that the people who have that job of cleaning rooms have about 4.5 minutes per room to clean a room. You can't clean a room in 4.5 minutes. So it's the appearance of looking clean. So I'm like, clearly, for the most part, these people are not going to be looking through people's bags. They shouldn't be looking through people's bags. They ain't got time to be looking through people's bags. If they looked through the person's bag and saw the guns, or if they saw the guns, are guns illegal in Las Vegas? So why would anybody be alarmed? If people are going there for gun shows and buying 2, 5, 10, 20 guns, I mean, this man is in a high roller suite. I don't, but anyway. But how, so the article was kind of talking about that, and also talking about the fact that for the most part, is it the First Amendment or the Second Amendment? Is it the Second Amendment that deals with the right to bear arms, was primarily, designed as a way of making sure that white men were armed so that hold, hold, hold on a second. So that if Native people whose land had been stolen by them and or people of African descent, African people who were being forced on an ongoing basis to work the land and to work for these rich white men with property and power, that they could, fight back, because also it was way more of us than it was of them. And so, they were paranoid, as well they should have been. They should have been afraid. And they should have been afraid. Because, you holding people hostage, you holding people in jail, you raping them, you killing them, you abusing them, you stealing their labor, you're stealing their time, you're stealing their energy, you're demeaning them, you're humiliating them, you separated them from their family and their culture and their communities, and you do that on an ongoing basis. Because enslaving somebody, it's not like you're like, ding, you're a slave, and you never have to go back to that again. No, that's not how it works. You keep somebody enslaved. You have to keep, because I'm free in my heart and in my soul. And so why am I you have to keep mentally going after me. You have to keep holding me down in order for me to stay down. So, in one of the ways, and so you have to be afraid of people rising up and being like, this is some bull. I'm not going along with this. I don't care. You can kill me if you want to. So they got to have, but anyway, so it's like, so you're not afraid of white men, because rich white men with property and power having guns or killing people, because that's what they programmed to do. That's now, if a black person, a black man or a black woman had done that, woo, they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the front end of the hordes of black people, the hordes of Native people or whoever, getting mad, getting revenge. The psychic vibration of the abuse that we have put on these people is coming back to us. Wimbledon Station commuters flee train in Bible panic. So somebody got on the train and they were reading from the Bible. And so people were listening. And then, part of what the person was saying was something like, and don't be afraid of dying. And people started freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, this is probably like a precursor to somebody about to kill us. They about to get on the train and shoot us down or whatever. This is like the last rites type situation. So people started jumping off the train and evacuating the train. But apparently, or I think what I heard is the person just had a Bible. But, you never know. Like when somebody be like when I was a kid, I was out trick-or-treating and these older kids came and they were like, oh my gosh, you all be careful because somebody could rob you. And then about 2 blocks later, they robbed us. And so whenever somebody warned me of something, I start, because of that, I think it's because of that, I start with somebody be like, oh my gosh, be careful. I'd be like, what are they going to do to me? So, when the person is like, you don't worry about death, they were probably like, oh my God, they about to kill me. So that's what happened. High school football players booted from team for kneeling. Last year, I remember there were junior high students and, there were people all up and down, who were participating in this this conversation about the rights of black and brown people to be free of murderation and harassment. Most U.S. high school students never have to take a personal finance class. Did you ever take a personal finance class in school? I took a consumer education class. It was like some elective that I took as a senior. That's the closest I got. Professor arrested for assaulting black student in grocery store. This is a continuation of a story that you may have heard of before, where this woman was on Facebook saying, as soon as this girl is not my student, I'm going to put her name and information all over social media. She not going to, I don't know. It seemed like the student might have challenged the instructor in the class and they were in some kind of clash. And the professor was just going off on this student on her Facebook page. And the professor instructor, whatever. I don't know if she was a professor, but I think it was a college level type class or situation. This person ended up getting fired. So the story now is that she see this child in the grocery store. The young person says that the woman attacked her. The instructor says that she had something in one hand, and in the other hand she touched her to get her attention and said, "You ruined my life." I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened, but I have my theory. Alrutheus A. Taylor, a specialist in the history of blacks and segregation during Reconstruction. Americans are more likely to die from gun violence than drowning, fire, stabbing, choking, airplanes, animal attacks, and forces of nature combined, like a hurricane is a force of nature. Cornell University Black Student Group complains too many African Caribbean students. I thought it was an interesting article because I noticed as a student of color that the students like me who were like I grew up in Detroit, which was mostly black, and I grew up around black oriented things. And I noticed that a lot of the people around me, especially the generations after me, like when I was a first year student and the people who came in after me as first year students, they seemed to primarily be black students who were coming from basically white communities. They seemed to be black students who were used to being the only black in the room. So whereas I was like, oh, wait a second, this is unusual. We need more black professors. We need more black students. We need more blackness. They were like used to being the only black, and they weren't agitating for more blackness because they were just in a regular old situation. So, I did notice that. Now, I don't know if I probably would have been agitating if I was conscious enough to have more students coming from black communities. But also when you get students they were saying when you get students from Caribbean countries and from African countries, they are black skinned. Some of them have a consciousness to be black identified, but many of them do not identify with African American students. So they're sort of like women or other minorities who get to take advantage of affirmative action when black Americans were the ones who overwhelmingly experience, like the correction that supposedly you're trying to make with affirmative action is for 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow and all of this other stuff. And so now we have affirmative action to try to get us on the right foot. And then you bring other people into the mix who didn't have that same huge disadvantage that we had. So a person coming from the Caribbean or Africa, depending on their background, they're definitely different culturally in terms of their experiences on some level. But like I knew people who were Caribbean, who were Jamaican, who were generation upon generation of family doing well educationally and economically. But anyway, that's a whole conversation. But I just thought it was really interesting that the Cornell students, that was part of the conversation. And I think it's kind of like a complicated, sensitive subject as well, because how do we have this conversation? Tech workers get better with age, but that's not stopping systemic discrimination. They discriminating against us older people. King David versus Joshua. I have no idea what that was. Okay, so that's what I got. That's a whole day's worth of news feed. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome back. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. If you're an older subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. If you're about to subscribe and help us hit 200 subscribers, woo! Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing. Today is the best day ever. You are the greatest. You are number one. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you. Be